Today we're going to be focusing on sectioning drawing, and in the lower corner here in the screen you can see that we have the object that we're going to be creating as an orthographic section drawing. So again, it's not about recreating it as a 3D model object. We'll do that in Fusion 360 at a future date. But we're going to create this object as a two-dimensional half section drawing. And what that means is the half section is, as you can see, a quarter of this object has been removed to see the inside. So with a half section, you're removing just that quarter. If you were doing a full section, you would literally cut the object in half. So a half cut is a full section, a quarter cut is a half section. So it does actually have some connection to the actual section components terminology. So as we get started with this particular part has roughly a 3-inch OD. Overall length is 4.06, and then there's some smaller dimensions that we're going to be working with inside. So what we're going to do is set up our drawing environment. We'll set our units up, we'll set our layers up, and then we'll get drawing the object itself. And for this particular object, we'll be drawing a front view and either a side view or a top view, depending upon how we position the object. So a round object like this will only require two views. The section lines and so forth will be added as part of our drawing environment. So stay tuned. We'll get started on this project as we get rolling here. So initially we're going to set up our units and layers and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and pick layer properties to launch the layer properties window. And I find it always easiest just to type in the units command. And when we pop up the units command, it allows us to actually make our precision settings for the drawing environment. This isn't for the dimensioning environment, this is just for the drawing environment. So as we're looking at the drawing itself, we've got 2 decimal place accuracy. So we'll set up our decimal dimensions for 2 place accuracy. And our object snaps and other settings will get set up here as soon as we get our layers done. So let's go ahead and set up a few new layers. So we'll set up an object lines layer or a visible layer. We'll set up a section lines layer. We'll set up a dimensioning layer. Centerline layer. And that'll get us a good start. And if there's more layers that we need, we can work with it. Center lines I always make green. Again, that's just a personal preference. Dimensioning will go with a slightly off color, whether it's like a fuchsia, reddish color, because those usually project pretty well. Section lines, we're going to go with a greenish blue hue here, kind of a cyan color. And our object lines today will remain as white. Now each of the line types, section lines are going to be solid, dimensioning lines are going to be solid, continuous center lines, however, we need to set up our center lines. So I'm going to select the line type. We need to load our center lines. With this being such a small object, we are going to do the center to center lines. And so we'll select the center to center lines, so those will show up. Line weights, that's the thickness of the line itself. Typically our object lines are slightly thicker than all others. If you remember back from other previous presentations, the line thicknesses are the same as those pencil diameters that you can buy, those mechanical pencils. So most commonly you're going to see like a 0.7, 0.5. There are some 0.9s out there. We're going to do a 0.5 millimeter default value. So when we print it out, it'll be a little bit thicker on the object lines and everything else will be slightly thinner. And that'll set up our layer environment. And we'll double click or set the object lines as our initial drawing environment. So with that being set up, we have our line type layers. Down on the bottom, we can set up our grid, our object snaps. Um, right now, we have, uh, let's see here, polar tracking setup, which is fine. That'll because we're going to be doing primarily a linear drawing, and so typically we'll set up our polar tracking that's at 15 degrees. You can go as low as 5, but since everything we're doing is going to be more or less linear, 15 is fine. Um, the O-snap mode, we hit the down arrow. You can see the ones that are turned on currently are endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, extension, perpendicular. Those are the key ones that we work with. At times we'll pop up and use the tangent ones using the shift right mouse button to pop up an intermediate object snap as we need it. So we're ready to roll. We've got our basic setup done, and we can now start creating our drawing. So in this case, creating the drawing itself, we're going to do a couple of things. First things, we're going to draw a line, and this line is going to be, let's see here, we're going to position this vertically. So we're going to draw the line as a vertical line, and it's going to be a fairly long line. Now, granted, this line's looking like 17, and so that's gigantic. I'm going to have to zoom up here, and we're going to shift the image back on so you can see it. But I need to draw a line that's roughly about 8 or 9 inches long. That's a little bit better, so that's 13. That'll work. So we'll choose enter. We'll then use the move command, and basically what I've done is I've put this graphic in our drawing space. And so it's just over here to help us see what we're actually creating. And so this particular object, as we've learned before, that round objects when creating orthographic, they're actually rectangular. And so what we can do is begin drawing the shape as a rectangular oriented shape, and then we can work with the specific details. This line itself, though, is going to be our center line. So I just drew a line here. We're going to grip it, go up to our layers, and select center line so it becomes our center line shape. And so it's a quick and easy way. You don't have to switch layers to draw the line. You draw the line as part of the object layer and then just apply the center line itself. So we're going to draw the front view first. We'll then create a top view in this space. And again, I may actually have to shrink this to make this a little bit smaller so it's more palatable within our workspace as we magnify up here so we can see the objects, and this doesn't take up a gigantic amount of space. So we'll shrink that down. Perfect. That'll work pretty well there. We'll move this over just a little bit more. And again, I just copied and pasted an image onto my drawing sheet. Makes it an easy way to do this. All right, so we're going to start with some basic lines on the object lines. I'm not going to create the shape, so I shouldn't say that. What I should say is that the shape is going to be accurate as we draw it. So unlike using Fusion or Inventor or even the parametric tools now within AutoCAD, we're going to draw this as an accurate drawing from the object itself. So we're going to start near the bottom of the object, and so we're going to pick the starting point as the center point, and we're going to work to one side. So coming off to the right-hand side, and the bottom of the object, you'll see that we've got a 1-inch diameter shape. So that's going to be a 1/2 inch. So all the diameter dimensions that we work with are going to be half the size as we continue to build this out. So it's going to be 0.5 as a linear dimension. The vertical dimension on that is 4.06. And we'll have to do a little bit of math here to get the dimension of that little tab on the bottom here, but that's going to be a vertical spot. So that height of that object is going to be 0.43, so we'll point and shoot. So again, vertically 0.43, hit the enter key, and then we're going to go back horizontal out to the outer range, which is 2.25 is the OD of that shape. So half of that is going to be 1.125. Now that's from the center line. Now we're already 0.5 out. So the distance that we need to actually draw this line out is 0.625. And then we're going to go vertical. So the vertical distance from here to the base shows that it is 3.25 vertically. So now we're at the base of the upper lip detail of this part. And so that upper lip detail has an OD of 3 inches. That's 1.5 inches all the way out. So one of the easiest ways that you can draw this is hit the escape key, draw a line, highlight the endpoint here to bring the line to start here at the center, and draw a line straight across and point and shoot 1.50. So worst comes to worst, we can always enter that distance. Now, reality says that I don't need this line on the inside, I just need this little overhang here. So I can use the trim command, so I can pick trim, pick the existing line, right mouse click, select the line to remove. And so sometimes it's faster to draw it that way than it is to try to do the mathematics associated with the design, because you don't necessarily have all the information readily available at your fingertips or have a calculator. So the thickness of the outside lip is 0.38, so we'll go ahead and draw that. 0.38, go vertical. Now we're going to need to magnify because we have a very small lip here. So the inside diameter is 2.75, so the difference is basically 1/8 of an inch thickness between the outer and the inner diameter. And then we have a depth of that section of 0.09. So let's magnify up. So it's going to be 0.125 and then 0.09 down. And then that's going to go to the hole. So as we zoom back out, we have a hole through the center here, and the interior hole's got a diameter of 1.75. That calculates to a 0.875 distance. So 0.875, hit the enter key. To the interior of the hole. So that's the interior of the hole. Excuse me, it's 0.875 from the center. So let's go ahead and erase that. Draw a line. Let's magnify, highlight this to bring it straight over to find the intersection point. Bring this out and 0.875. Hit the enter key and then connect the last dot to the end point there and erase the original 0.875 line. So that is now the opening surface there. So now we have to create the interior shape. And so the same detail that we did for the exterior development, we're going to use for the interior. So from that top surface down to the first insert component is 1.25. So we're going to draw a line straight down, 1.25. And that goes all the way, well, not all the way to the center, because there's a hole in the middle that is a 1/2 inch diameter hole. So again, we can highlight and we can do a couple of things. And the easiest way is to stop the line, draw a new line, highlight the endpoint where it needs to go, connect to starting with the center line, draw a 0.25 line that you're going to erase, and then connect it all the way out to the outer edge. And then come back and you can erase that 0.25 line. So in essence, we've now created this top shelf. The next line is actually in 1/4 inch below. So we can use the offset command that allows us to offset a line. So we pick offset, which is right here. We type in the distance, 0.25, hit the enter key. We pick this line here, that's our offset line, and offset it below. The good news is that that line already has the opening distance already specified. So that hole that goes through the part, and we can actually draw this all the way down and trim it as we need it, that's going to be the hole through the rest of the part. So now we have one more distance from the base of this to the bottom of the object. And so now let's draw the line from here, bringing this down to the bottom of the object. So that distance from the bottom of the object to the bottom of the part is a distance of 0.31 above this lip. So it's 0.31 above that lip. So we can build another construction line looking at the dimensions. We've got 0.31 and 0.31. So now it looks all messed up in my drawing. So as we magnify here, this looks all messed up. But what this is telling me is that I need a line that's going to come down to here for the outside wall that's going to stop at that horizontal line that I just created, that construction line. That line is going to move all the way across to that half-inch hole. So now it looks like this. But we're not done. We need to erase that little construction line of the 0.31, and we need to trim this section out of that line. So we're going to pick trim, pick the upper horizontal line, the lower horizontal line, right mouse click, and trim. So now we're getting close to the shape of the object. Now we're not totally done yet, but this is the outside shape. The good news is that this outside shape can be mirrored to the other side to get the opposite shape of the object. So using the mirror command, I can select the objects here. Notice that I'm being very careful not to select the center line. So I pick the objects that I'm going to mirror, right mouse click, and then I'm going to pick the end point of the center line, and I'll pick a point on the center line, and we'll mirror the object. So we have now just created our shape. We're not totally done yet though. The lines that we don't have all the lines created on this object. So we need to draw a line straight across. We need to draw a line at every horizontal surface pattern. And what that is going to show is that these happen to be surfaces that have relationship to the shape. So you can still see the back side of the hole even though you might have cut the part open. And I think I forgot a layer, the hidden line layer, that is going to need to be made to create hidden lines. So we've just created these surfaces. So that's exactly what the part looks like when you chop it in half. But this part's not chopped in half. We're only going to do a half section. So at this point, we can put the sectioning lines in half of the drawing, and then the other half parts of it are going to become hidden lines because technically part of the object is still solid and you're looking at the outside of the object. So the idea here is that we can take the section lines, which by the way are called hatch lines, and the hatch lines can be applied to areas. And so we can highlight the area that we want to apply that section line, and we can right mouse click and choose enter. Now you can choose any one of a ton of different section lines. You can change the angle of the section lines. You can change the scaling factor of the section lines so that way you can make them closer together or farther apart. These actually look really good, and hence the reason why I right mouse clicked and I'm going to choose enter to accept it. So that is the section lines that I need for the drawing. Now to finish this portion of the front view, I'd have to put hidden lines in to the areas that we cannot see. So to make that happen, I'm going to probably end up having to do some trimming and redrawing of some of the lines so that way they're smaller sections of the entities themselves. So what we're going to do is I'll go ahead and do that process as we go through here. But before that, I need to create a new layer, one for hidden lines, and select hidden lines for that hidden line layer. And so we'll make this kind of a off yellow color for hidden lines. That'll project well. But now for the hidden lines, I'm going to need to pick the hidden, we're going to need to load hidden 2 as the hidden line because that's half the scale of a standard hidden line. So now we got hidden lines. So certain things I can actually pick and make hidden lines. Like these vertical lines here are perfect. This line is perfect for a hidden line. That line's perfect for a hidden line. This one's good for a hidden line. Those are all perfect hidden line lines. So I highlight those, grip them, select hidden, and you can see what happens. This side happens to be hidden lines. This side is now section lines. What I need to do and clean up are the lines in the middle because this line and this line up to the center line need to be hidden. And the same here. This line and this line up in between actually this line needs to be hidden. The outer lines are fine. And then this line is going to need to be hidden also because we cannot see that. So I'm going to need to do a little bit of trimming and cleaning up with the lines here. Okay, so to trim these up, we're going to go ahead and select the center line and the hidden lines, right mouse click, and we'll trim out the sections that are going to need to become hidden here. So those 3 sections are going to be hidden, and that section is going to need to be hidden. This line I can actually choose to be a hidden line. So we'll draw these sections in just as standard individual lines now as opposed to part of the longer lines. And same thing, we'll select the sections to make hidden lines hidden. And this one's going to need to be selected, that needs to be selected, that needs to be selected, that needs to be selected, and drop down, pick hidden, bingo bango. There are the hidden lines. So this side is hidden, the right side is sectioned. When we drew the top view here, the top view is just a series of circles. And so you're going to have a 3-inch diameter circle. So this is actually going to be pretty easy to do. We're going to find a spot here. We could pick the midpoint of that line if we wanted to. We can highlight that, bring it straight up, and then draw a 3-inch diameter circle. So that's going to be 1.5. So that's the 1.5 circle. We're going to have another circle based on that center point. Again, notice how I highlight the outside of the edge of the circle to find the center point, pick the starting point, drag it out. Second one's 2.75. You know what I did? Forgot to divide it by 2. So we're going to undo that, redo the circle, highlight that, pick that up, drag that out. And so if I do right mouse click, I can do diameter instead of radius, and now I can type in 2.75, which is the diameter. And I can do the same thing on the repeat circle, pick the center point. The inner circle that we have, or the outer OD, is 2.25 diameter, so we can right mouse click, choose diameter 2.25. The interesting thing is that this 2.25 arc is going to need to be hidden because we can't see it from up above. And we'll repeat the circle, find the center point, and now we've got our interior diameter which is 1.75. And then we've got the hole on the inside, which is a 1/2 inch diameter. And then we've got the 1 inch diameter circle on the very bottom. Oops, got to pick circle to make that happen. Find the center, boom, drag it out. That can be 0.50 as a radius. That one also will be hidden because we can't see that section there on the bottom. So again, when we're looking at this, the circles line up, and when we're doing dimensions, we'll dimension all the circles up top that we can see visibly. The 2 circles that we cannot see, we're going to need to dimension in the front view, which is an important environment. So the next step would be to create the dimensions and then detail the part itself on a drawing sheet. And so again, 2 views is all you need. I would then use the Annotate center marks, pick the outer circle to create the appropriate center mark. Before you do that, it would be best to set your center lines as your working layer, then do the center mark on the upper view, then go back to the home, change it back to the dimensions, and then begin your dimensioning annotations with your dimensions themselves. So if you pick the dimension and start your dimensioning processes, that would be a good way to do that. So you can actually pick those. And again, if you remember dimension properties, we pick the point. We can always go back, grip the dimension, right mouse click, change the precision to 2 decimal places, so that way it's consistent. What I would suggest though is go ahead and go into the dimension properties and then make those adjustments with the dimension properties themselves. So that way all of your dimensions are consistent regardless of the setting itself. And all you have to do is change the unit's precision under the dimension settings environment. Have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon.